Jim, we all have two, maybe more, types of energetics in our bodies, irregardless of what body we have, male, female, in between. There's feminine creative energy and masculine creative energy. So people are asking, well, how do I use both of those since I have access to them? How do I use them to create?
Okay. So as a person evolves, one of the things we begin to move away from is this male body and female body. So masculine and feminine have expansive characteristics, and they are very creative in the process when used in these evolving aspects of presentation.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things that allows you to begin to recognize how to use the energetics we've talked about many times is masculine energy, kind of a sense of straight lines and angles. Feminine energy is curves and swirls. And so when you begin to recognize these are creative applications, how you begin to be more masterful at what you do, how you begin to be more aware of how the world works, a lot of that can be translated into the energies of words. So a masculine word may be more structured, focused, precision, certain, capable. There's kind of a line or an angle to that. Whereas gracious and gratitude, appreciation, happy, beauty, really doesn't have any defined lines and curves. So when you begin to recognize that and start to look at the nature of words, so words aren't the end-all. Words are applications. And so when you begin to recognize that when I speak using different, let's say, sentence structure, and I use a word like precise or opening or flow, I can begin to create a reasonably articulate sentence that has meaning.
Mm-hmm.
When you begin to look at how do you hold a word in your space, like I'm going to be certain, but I'm going to feel the energy of certain. My body kind of wants to sit up and hold a structure. Whereas graceful and beauty, there's no lines to the dancer that's just moving and smoothing, or the diver in the air doing spins and somersaults. So the nature of the application of a male structure or female flow begin to be important to understand. So one of the aspects of this is understanding the nature of, you have to have both masculine and feminine. And they work in a yin and a yang. They work in a moving forward and a moving back. And so in a way, a feminine personality, let's say, a male or a female that holds lots of feminine energy and doesn't want to stand up for themselves, or doesn't have the capacity to draw a line in the sand or say, stop, this is where we're going. That feminine personality is very weak because it doesn't have any structure.
Mm-hmm.
Conversely, a male personality that is, this is the truth, here's the line, we don't go past this, this is how we do it in this household. There's no flexibility, there's no ease and consideration for other people in that space. So the masculine and the feminine need, and you take it up a little bit and I begin to understand it as you play with it in a fifth dimensional space. It's the place where the feminine says, gee, I would love to have such a creative experience. I'd like to have a beautiful lawn. And the masculine energy says, I can make this all come about. And or the feminine says, well, if we had rocks and trees and create beauty, masculine energy comes in and says, I can put the rocks here and the trees here and create structure to beauty.
Uh-huh.
And understanding that, and understanding it with applications of words that are soft or hard or firm or flowing, and beginning to speak sentences using the flow of the energy, the sense of sitting up and doing it precisely, and the ease in which it unfolds. The body begins to go into this ebb and flow and it functions in a wholeness. So this masculine and feminine begin to be the nature of oneness as you step into this fifth dimension.
So, is it the feminine creative energy that's the initial spark that gets the lawn going, or the garden, or the birdhouse, or it's the feminine side that says, I want this thing?
Well, that's exactly correct. But in a space where somebody is in a third, fourth dimension, they're still going to their external world. That concept doesn't mean anything at all. But when you start stepping into this fifth dimensional space and you begin to have different alignments within the bodies, you begin to utilize the Sacred Heart, you begin to have access to the Holy Spirit, you begin to use the Christ consciousness as tools of creation and experience, then in that space you begin to understand masculine and feminine even in a much greater way. The first impulse, the thought, I wonder, what if, is a feminine creative spark that begins to just create a flow. And that flow is a flow, it's a movement. It's like watching smoke just begin to evolve. And then the masculine steps in and says, I can do that. I can build that birdhouse. I can make that wonderful garden for you that you are thinking.
Yeah. Now, for people who have not gone through level 1, 2, 3, what I'm watching is that it's really, it's possible to, with just what you said, employ the female creative energy and the male creative energy for a desire. And it might even be as simple as make a list of all words that feel like curves and swirls to you. Make a list of all the words that feel like straight lines and angles, and then use each of those in the creation.
In the application, sure.
So those individual words are tools to use when I'm wanting to create a new red car or something.
Absolutely. So see, what happens though is, what is really happening is I'm beginning to become conscious of being conscious. Now that's a huge step because, again, most of the world walks around unconscious of being unconscious. So, like you suggested, write a list down. And then how does that word feel? You know, that's why we put so much emphasis on building these platforms of words like certain and capable, gracious, and begin to have a sense of internalizing them. They are the structure and the flow, happy and graciousness, presence. Those are feminine concepts with no definitions to them yet, but certain, capable, seniority, commanding of that presence begins to be this ebbing and the flowing of the yin and the yang. And that's a conscious evolution of a personality. If a person says, all right, I'm going to play with this, I'm going to start to walk around and I'm going to be certain today, I'm going to notice what it feels like, I'm going to be gracious, I'm going to be allowing, I'm going to open the door and say thank you. In that space of recognizing, the body begins to have feelings and alignments that are very much in this ebbing and flowing. It's in the anger and the resentment and the external expression that we don't know ourselves. So playing with masculine and feminine at this really simple but very creative format that we're talking about has great potential for the evolution of a spiritual being.